Okay, good. Here we go. Let's get into this real quick. All right, so what are we going to talk about today? Well, today we are talking about basically this amazing situation where the government has shut down now for an extended period. And as a result, we are looking at how many states will actually pay food stamps going into November. And the correct answer is pretty much none of them, except maybe New York, who may partially fund them themselves. However, the government at the federal level has warned specifically that they should not be processing or sending out food stamp checks or food stamp notifications. Oh, we got a doggy alarm. If, for example, there's a situation where, what's happening? Sweetie, stop. Okay. So for what's happening is they probably won't pay any. What is going on? I don't know. I might have to go check it out. But either way, the point I'm getting at is basically this: no states, November, unless these 21 particular items go ahead and get passed. Again, 21 particular items have to get passed. Now, some of you are of the belief, and I don't know why, but it's fine if you are, that essentially, the Republicans are trying to constantly stall and restrict the voting potential of this situation, which is ironic because if you know how filibusters work, you would realize that they are very much so in control, but just not enough in control to get the votes that they need. So while they do have the House and they do have the Senate and they do have the White House, they still don't have enough to get what they want. So the reality here is this, okay? Yeah, I see the hearts for Sweetie. She's doing very, very well. All the surgeries, she's doing great now. She's still very judgmental and bitchy all the times, but she's a good little piggy puff. So she's now right over here. She's probably going to start demanding things. So with that said, okay, I want to go through because I think people are having a hard time understanding how many times at the Senate level they have tried to go ahead and vote a solution to this shutdown. On September 30th of 2025, okay, there was a failed Senate vote for 55 to 45. On October 1st of 2025, there was a failed Senate vote 50 to 47. On October 3rd of 2025, there was a failed Senate vote of 54 to 45. On October 6th, remember you need 60. October 6th of 2025, there was a failed Senate vote of 51 to 45. On October 9th of 2025, okay, there was a Senate vote 52 to 42 for GOP, 50 to 47 for the Democrats. They did the GOP bill clean CR to November 21st, Democratic bill CR with ACA subsidies. Then the October 14th, 2025, failed the Senate 54 to 45. That was a procedural vote. Then there was October 16th, 2025. Okay. Failed Senate vote 50 to 44. That was military appropriations to fund defense during partial shutdown. October 20th, 2025. Basically, they tried to do the same clean CR that, clean if you want CR that they were trying to do before. Senate vote 50 to 43. 7 senators absented. They failed in total to go ahead and pass because remember, you need enough votes. And then basically October 22nd, we have a clean CR retry again. Failed Senate vote 54 to 46. So when people say, emphatically, definitively, that the Republicans are in control of the votes and therefore the Democrats never get a chance to vote, I would question that immensely because over and over and over again, they keep setting things to a vote. And sometimes they set things up for just the CR, the clean bill to go through from the Republican side. Sometimes the Democrats propose their version. And all of these different things fail. No matter what they do, all of these different things fail. So as a result of this situation, I guess what I would say is this: I don't believe these senators have been restricted on the Republican or the Democrat side from actually, voting and telling people where they're at. Now, remember, this is not a perfect party line gig all the time. There are certain individuals who vote one way or the other that are not voting the way their party should. Kentucky, Pennsylvania are some of them. But let's get into exactly what are the 21 items, without wasting time, that are required for the Democratic Party to sign on board with the Republicans to go ahead and reopen the government and then process food stamps. Now, remember, food stamps. Okay. They don't affect disabled people as much as they should. You have around 1,200, I think it's like 1,255 or something like that. But the bottom line is it changes per state. But the bottom line is with food stamps, most SSDI people that are not having to have a hybrid SSI program with them, most can't tap into it because the bar is very low on the federal poverty rate. So, the bottom line is most disabled on SSDI can't access food stamps unless they're on a hybrid with SSI. A lot of SSI people do, but they don't get much. So for me, just a little side note, I'm going to stand on my soapbox with this. I don't know if it were me and we could basically pay the pensions of all Ukraine citizens, to some degree and keep sending them essentially military gear and yada, yada, yada. I feel like we might be able to, since the Biden economy was not so fruitful for the disabled, the Bidenomics kind of made food very expensive. I think it wouldn't be such a bad idea if we gave full food stamps to all disabled people. I mean, I don't think that's so. Do you think it's unreasonable? I don't think it's unreasonable. I think honestly, if the Republicans were smart about this, and I'm not trying to be mean to them, but if they were smart about this, if they wanted to get voters on their side, easy peasy. If you're on disability benefits, you get food stamps, right? That easy peasy, okay? Maybe a little wiggle room on retired people, stuff like that. Maybe raise some numbers, whatever. But bottom line is, if you're disabled, food stamps, okay? I don't think it's wrong. I mean, think about a lot of things that are wrong, right? A $2,000 resource limit. SGA is $1,620. The hell are you going to do? I mean, if you own a destroyed vehicle with 3 tires, a broken tailpipe, and missing part of the roof, that thing's still probably worth more than $2,000. It's just not a fair system. It's weird. We punish SSI married couples because it's supposed to be cheaper for them because there's 2 of them. What? I mean, maybe that logic made sense before Bidenomics and Obamanomics and Trumponomics. And, maybe in like Nixonomics land that made sense. But nowadays, what the hell, man? It's moronic. It's just levels of stupidity when it comes to the rules we have in place for these programs is just absolutely astounding. All right, let's go through the 21 details. The big one. Let's not fuddle with the little ones yet. Let's go right to the big one. All right, so there was the Affordable Care Act premium tax credits, which were these advanced premium tax credits or APTCs. The bottom line is that they basically, for a lot of impoverished people, they created this subsidy. You know what a subsidy is? Some of you don't know what a subsidy is. Let me kind of walk you through what a subsidy is. A subsidy is where the government pays for some stuff to imbalance the market so that the poor thing doesn't have to pay as much for the thing that costs a certain amount. And by doing that, it allows an advantage to the poor thing. Our government gives subsidies to other governments. Our government gives subsidies to the poor. Our government gives subsidies to corporations. It's a methodology of creating a way to give money to some group that needs to access something, but they don't have the money to do it. So a lot of you are going to be sitting back there going, well, I don't want to do this because I'm a Republican, or I think this is a great idea because I'm a Democrat and blah, 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 or whatever. I'm in the middle, right? So I'm registered independent because, shits and giggles. Yeah, that's my definition for it at this point. I'm sticking with it. Now, here's the gig. All right, so you got these tax credits, these subsidies, these things going on. You got cost sharing reductions, CSRs. So basically, just to kind of help you out, the whole idea is that the enhancements will increase the amount of people that should get a cut or not have to pay as much to keep their insurance. So it's those who are poor who can't afford their insurance to begin with, and those who basically are earning above 400% of the federal poverty level, roughly around $55,000 for an individual, $113,000 for a family of 4, 2025. And it makes it so that the government pays a portion of their health insurance so that they can afford their health insurance. And then there's cost sharing reductions, CSRs, right? So basically, these reduce certain costs that normally would suck, right? So, like if you got to pay copays or there's deductibles, all that stuff. These reduce these. These are cost sharing reductions. So the whole point of it is it's basically creating a situation where it helps to pay for the things that the poor people in America can't really pay for. Now, here's what blows my mind. I'm going to get in trouble with the Republicans on this one. Here's what blows my mind. No, okay, only extreme people believe that Bidenomics was effective. Okay, I rarely come across people in that niche, but every once in a while, once a month, somebody will be like, Biden created more jobs than any president in the history of America. And that's okay. There's lots of people and there's lots of cults, and that's one of them. But at the end of the day, obviously, when you shut the government and you shut the companies and the people down, then you restart things, that's not creating an entire industry among industries worth of jobs. Obviously, like anybody with a logical understanding of the basics of how anything works should be able to walk their body across that theory. It's too simple. I'm surprised some people still believe that. I don't, maybe the earth is flat, maybe it's not. We have to go along with whatever, unfortunately, is popular in the ridiculousness world that we're living in right now. So the point I'm getting at with this is that obviously Bidenomics, not very good for people. Trump knows that. So my thing here is, if Trump knows that, he could advertise how shitty Bidenomics actually was, and then he could go ahead and say, yeah, and that's why we're going to pay for and continue premium tax credits and cost sharing reductions so that our middle, lower class and lower class can afford their insurance because of Biden. Because remember, like December 2025, and then there's a few other little, timelines and stuff like that, but they're going to end. And then a lot of poor people, which is the middle class now, are not going to be able to afford their health insurance. So like, to me, I kind of sit back and look at the Republicans and go, look, I understand a lot of these items that the Democrats want to pass are basically a setup for communities to fund immigrants that are here illegally through, basically different, and I'm going to go through each and every one of them. So don't worry. If you're sitting there like, no, they don't. Yeah, they absolutely do. We're going to go through each and every one of them. So the point is, I get why the Republicans are sitting back going like, hey, wait a minute. I don't want to fund all this extra stuff. We don't have the money. But can we at least agree? Can we at least agree that a large portion of the working class, the middle, lower, the middle, the even the lower, a lot of them deserve to have health insurance because they're doing it. You know what I mean? Like, think about that. Somebody's working. Oh, you know what we should do? We should make their health insurance really, really expensive so that they get sick and can't show up for work. Or just hear me out. We could, I don't know, figure out a way to keep Americans healthy. What? I mean, wouldn't that be? I mean, I don't want to do the opposite of what pharmaceuticals have been doing or anything. I don't want to like put a bunch of petroleum products in our food that we're constantly eating. That is just not, I don't want to be that guy or whatever. But, at the same time, we could effectively find a way to fund Americans to stay healthy. That's like the best way to increase our economy, the money the government borrows against the working class and our work product, which I'm pretty sure is like a very Republican thing. I'm almost certain of it. So to me, when they're like, and this is the big ticket item, when they're like, when the Republicans are like, we don't want to fund that, we don't have any money, I'm sitting back and I'm just like, so the hell you gonna do when you want to buy McDonald's and, all of the Windows staff at that drive-through by the White House, they're all sick. What you gonna do? How you gonna get your Big Macs? You know what I mean? Like, what are you gonna do? So I guess from my perspective, I just feel like the Republicans should be more on board with this. I understand the reasons why they're not, and I don't agree with them. Now, with that said, while I don't agree with them on that one, there are quite a few that I do agree with them on. Let's go to the next one. Community Health Center Fund. It's going to expire. It has expired. It was of September 30th, 2025. So it's already expired. It provides funding, okay, to qualified health centers that basically deliver primary care to nearly 30 million underserved patients annually. Now, here's where we get into it, okay? This is the creeping and the crawling of basically the Democrats' mass vote farmed immigrants getting into this country and needing health insurance, or rather needing health treatment in local community clinics. This is the seepage of the Democrats saying, look, we let tens of millions of people into this country. It is what it is. And they say we must have the CHC fund funded, or else everybody suffers. No food stamps for November. Look, here's the thing. Like, I get it. The Democrats spent billions on immigrants that were here legally and illegal immigrants that they were trying to get validated through the system to, be on track for their green card. And now basically there's not enough funding to keep the Democrat, immigrant train going. And the Republicans are like, we don't support this. You're just turning, more future Democrats into future Democrats that are going to vote. They're like, we don't support this. You've created an army of tens of millions of people who are going to vote against the Republicans. Here's my thing, okay? And I want you to consider this, and I don't think it's wrong. I think it's something you should consider. Community health clinics, right? What do? They treat community members. Why? Well, a lot of community members can't, A, make it to the hospital. They don't have transportation like that unless they're going to be riding in a flashy vehicle called an ambulance. And B, a lot of them don't have all the stuff they need, to get real treatment. So, for example, maybe like NID, maybe like a this, maybe like a that. So you got these little community clinics, right? And trust me, if we didn't have community clinics, like you would have a lot of sick people, and then you would also have the emergency room of those who could get there, the bus line, the whatever, constantly overfilled. All right. So here's the thing. What do we do? Okay. There's 30 million underserved patients annually. What do I do with them? Do we keep funding the community clinics or do we not? Let me know in the comments. I'm curious to see your side of it. It's just another one. Now let's go on to the next one. The National Health Service Corps, okay, the NHSC. All right. So the National Health Service Corps expired September 30th, again, 2025. So the funding ended. Offers scholarships and loan repayment to primary care clinicians serving in shortage areas, which, just to be fair, shortage areas are like areas that are like far out in the boonies, right? God's country, and also super poor areas, right? So, areas that are, however you want to call it, the ghetto, the high crime area, the whatever. Do you feel that we should have loan repayment and scholarships for medical staff who are willing to put their lives on the line, working with those where the other doctors and nurses don't want to work with them? I don't know. You tell me. Like, what do you think we should? Do you think we should have scholarship forgiveness? Because remember, if they're working at these clinics, it's very dangerous. Now, me on the other side, I work with the homeless on Wednesdays. Ain't nobody forgiving my loans at the government. So, do I get bitter about it? No, the government's always been anti anything that I, am when it comes to loan forgiveness. But, the bottom line is, do you think we should give scholarships and loan repayment to medical staff who essentially work at medical facilities that other doctors and nurses will not invest their time at? Remember, it costs money. We don't have a lot of money as America. We're massively in debt. What do you want to do? Next one. Okay, we got the Teaching Health Center Graduate Medical Education Program, expired September 30th, 2025. Funds training for medical residents in community-based settings, focusing on underserved areas. All right, here we go. Teaching Health Center Graduate Medical Education Program. So now we're talking about graduate level people. All right, we're talking about higher level medical people. Do we want to fund them going and getting on, like literally they're there. They're at these community clinics. Do we want to be part of the funding machine that funds them to work at these community clinics? Now, again, where do people show up if they're an illegal immigrant and they've got a problem? Community clinics, emergency rooms. Okay. Those are the main two, medical treatment options, right? So I understand the Republican side where it's like they don't want to pay for, Biden's illegal immigrants. I get that. But then on the other side, if those immigrants get some sort of virus or bacteria or fungus, it's going to spread real quick if we don't treat them. Just something to consider. I'm not saying you should go this way. I'm just something to consider. Next one, Medicaid disproportionate share hospital, DSH, payment cuts delay. This is a delay that basically expires September 30th. It postpones scheduled cuts to payments for safety net hospitals serving large numbers of low-income or uninsured patients. All right. This is the one where basically Medicaid helps out, low-income areas. Somebody comes in and it's an emergency Medicaid requirement, stuff like that. Basically, it's giving more money, right, to these different places that deal with impoverished people. Now, look, I'm going to be very straightforward with you. If America was run like Hollywood, what would happen? Keep in mind, I'm not saying this will happen, but if it was run like Hollywood, what would happen is a lot of impoverished people, including immigrants, low income, and illegal immigrants, would basically not have food stamps and would not have medical treatment. And if that happens, it would not be difficult for some sort of medical condition to spread like wildfire, far exceeding what happened with COVID back in 2020. So if America was run like Hollywood, it would look like a lot of people that are poor getting sick because the poor places that treat them weren't getting funded. So it would then create a new COVID situation, although it'd probably be something else. And then, of course, we'd be back into, do we close down all the businesses and allow Biden a second term to become the great champion of starting and making all the jobs that have ever been made in the history of America? Minus, of course, the mega corporations that got to stay open no matter what. So again, I ask you, do you want to fund Medicaid for the super poor areas? It's a simple question. Okay? And remember, these are millions and millions. Some of them are billions. So we're not talking about small money here. Okay? Next one, Medicare telehealth flexibilities expired already, September 30th, 2025. Pandemic era waivers that expand telehealth access by removing geographic restrictions, allowing audio-only services, and broadening provider eligibility, now limited mostly to rural areas and mental health. Do you guys want the government to continue to be flexible and help fund treatment for essentially, doctors to be able to see you through the phone? Video teleconference, Zoom, Microsoft, blah, 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 whatever. Do you guys support that? I mean, a lot of you use, right? A lot of you use it for the mental health, right? Totally fine, is what it is, right? Physical, they're pulling back on that. They want you to physically be seen, physically go in. Okay, all right, no problem, no biggie. But where do you stand on that? Do you want telehealth flexibility like you had it before? With the whole COVID thing. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Do you want to see funding going towards that? What do you want? Next one, acute hospital care at home programs, known as hospital at home waiver. Expired already, September 30th, 2025. It allows Medicare to cover acute level care delivered in patients' homes. Okay. Look, if they're on Medicare, you know what I mean? I think the Republicans should allow this one to go through. I really do. I think honestly, having a hospital at home waiver option is, I do not know why the Republicans are fighting this one. This makes no sense why they would fight this one. Okay. Next one, Medicare Work Geographic Practice Cost Index, the GPCI floor. Expired September 30th, 2025, ensures Medicare physician payments in rural areas aren't unfairly reduced due to geographic cost formulas. So in other words, in order to get doctors to work with people that are, in areas that are in the middle of nowhere, right? The cost could potentially be seen as too high or too this or too that or whatever. And this is a system that helps pay for some of the costs to make it make sense for the doctors to treat people in the middle of nowhere. I don't see a problem with that one. I mean, that makes sense. Just evening the playing field of doctors treating people in God's country somewhere in the middle of nowhere. You know what I mean? I don't see an issue with this one. Okay. Next one, special diabetes program expired already, September 30th, 2025, includes funding for NIH research on type 1 diabetes and services for tribal Indian health service communities. I mean, what do you want? Do you guys want to fund diabetes? How do you feel about it? There were some issues with it. The program is not squeaky clean from some of the stuff that I saw, but the good ideas there, the good vibes are there, the good purpose is there. So, it just, I don't know. What do you want to do with it? You want to fund it? You don't want to fund it? You want the Republicans to not fund it? You want the Democrats to fund it? What do you want? You want your food stamps? You want the program? What do you want? Next one. It's called PrEP, Personal Responsibility Education Program, expired September 30th, 2025. Funds evidence-based initiatives to reduce teen pregnancy and promote adolescent health. I'm going to be honest with you. We need more pregnancy. Obviously, when they're younger individuals, it gets tricky. The moral arguments start to get a little bit, problematic because, look, our fertility rate is at 1.6. The Social Security trust funds, they calculated at 1.9. 1.9 is a hell of a lot more than 1.6. That means the Social Security math that they use to calculate how long the trust funds will last is very wrong because it's based off of a very big wrong number. 1.9 children per female is a lot more than 1.6 children per female. So like the point I'm getting at here is we need more kids to be born. But when kids are born to teens, those kids don't always end up achieving much in life. Because I'm going to say something that some of you will disagree with. Most of the time, it takes two parents to go ahead and care to raise a successful child that can do incredible things. Now, granted, if the school systems see the child as particularly bright, they'll grab the child, they'll put the child into specialty programs, sure. But again, you have single moms that are in their teens having a kid, and the family's not always around. Sometimes the family is. It can be difficult for that child to get the grasp on the wall of life, climb the corporate ladder, if you will, to succeed. So, do you want to go ahead and pay for basically, evidence-based initiatives to reduce teen pregnancy and promote adolescent health? Like, where do you stand on that? Do you feel like that's a good thing to spend money on? Do you feel like it's not a good thing to spend money on? Where are you at with it? Okay. Next one, the MDH program. Medicare Dependent Hospital Program, already expired on the 30th of September, provides enhanced payments to small rural hospitals heavily reliant on Medicare patients. Okay. It's just another version of it's like a subsidizing. They're carrying it so that it works out. Now, look, some of you have seen this in real life. Okay. Some of the hospitals you see, the big hospitals, they're buying out all the other hospitals. They're building all these extra wings, have a lot more wings than the White House is getting. They're building constant new hospitals, new this, new that. They're buying out all the buildings that the specialists are in. And now those buildings are called this hospital with these specialists, right? And they just suck all those specialists into their overall design. Then there's the little shitty hospitals in the middle of nowhere. Little shitty hospitals obviously are not building extra hospitals all over the place. They're getting eyeballed by corporate hospitals to take over them. So my point is, do you support the little hospitals getting funded, subsidized by the federal government before some mega hospital buys them out? Now, of course, Republicans will say, let capitalism work, the mega hospital will buy them out. Of course, Democrats will say, yeah, but we want to fund it so that it can continue to succeed with the class of individuals that are living in those underdeveloped areas. What do you want? You want to pay for that or not? It's up to you. Let me know. Let me know. Okay. Next one. Here we go. All right. Next one is low volume hospital payment adjustment. Expired already September 30th, 2025. Supports rural hospitals with low inpatient volumes to maintain financial viability. So if you got a hospital, there's not a lot of people visiting it. The hospital's there. The government is subsidizing it to keep it afloat. If they don't subsidize it, it will go under. You will lose the hospital, and then that area will not have a medical facility. Do you want to pay for it, or do you not want to pay for it? I mean, we could just send a bunch of those immigrants to that area and let them use that hospital, although that might be expensive to relocate them. It was cheap to let them in, but to get them out or move them, it's going to be a little bit more expensive. It just is. It just is. Next one. Okay. Ground ambulance add-on payments. Already expired September 30, 2025. Increases Medicare payments for ambulance services in rural and super rural areas. All right. Do you want the government to subsidize ambulances picking up emergency medical necessary people? What do you want? You want people in rural and super rural areas, okay, to be able to get medical treatment because, an ambulance was able to show up? Obviously medevacing people with a helicopter isn't cheap, so maybe an ambulance is. My point to you is this. Do you want to fund, and I'm not saying you need to, I am not saying you need to, but do you want to fund, subsidize, have your tax dollars go towards, if you're not working, have the working class's tax dollars go towards funding ambulances to go pick up the medically necessary, many of which could be disabled. I'm not trying to bias you on that one. It's the reality, that live in rural and super rural areas. What do you want to do? Well, why is a disabled person living in a super rural area if they're disabled? Because a lot of them don't have access to land but for what their parents left them. And sometimes that land is in super rural areas. That's just how it is. All right. Next one. Medicare quality measurement support. Already expired September 30th, 2025. Funds CMS development and endorsement of quality metrics for Medicare. Okay. It's basically analytics to figure out, is Medicare doing what it's supposed to be doing? Are they blowing money? Are they wasting money? Are they properly paying things? I mean, to be fair, if that worked well, we wouldn't have $15 billion in Medicare fraud going on, right? And then a huge chunk of that was the Villages Health from the villages in Florida. So to be fair, like if that was working, or maybe they just need to sharpen that pencil a little bit harder when it comes to that. But Medicare quality measurement support. Do you want to support? Do you want to fund Medicare figuring out where the fraud is coming from and how effective certain drugs are, certain payments are, all that kind of, do you support that? I don't know. You tell me. Do you support it? You tell me. I'm curious. Now, with that said, I don't do a lot of Medicare stuff. I don't answer a lot of Medicare questions because it's just not my jam. I'm America's most viewed, subscribed to, and clicked on Social Security disability attorney. So if you need Social Security benefits, right, you can always call me during the 9 to 5 at the law firm. That's the law firm. Whoops, right there. But for Medicare stuff, if you have Medicare and you want to figure out if you've got a great program, call these guys. Let them do it's very simple. You call them, it's like 15, 20 minutes. It's a free call for you. Bottom line is they do a tune-up on your Medicare. AskChapter.org/disability 339-226-6287. Just give them a call and let them check in. I would call them if I were in that situation because I'd want them to figure out if my doctors were part of the giant fraud situation and whether or not I was on a good program that was going to continue forward, because I did a video on it. A lot of medical facilities are no longer allowing certain programs, certain Medicare Advantage programs and policies. So like, I would call them and be like, hey guys, ... am I on a good policy based off of, what's going on with medical facilities not accepting certain policies anymore? Again, it's a free call to you. Do it if you want, don't do it if you don't want, whatever. You know what I mean? But it's a free call. And many of you are disabled and have the time. I guess, but if you don't want to spend time on yourself, remember your job in life is to upkeep your benefits, which includes your health insurance. Check every month, health insurance, tax cuts, blah, 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 blah. Right? That's your job. Your job is to upkeep the thing that keeps you alive. Cool. Next one. All right. Medicare outreach and enrollment support. It's outreach and assistance for basically their impoverished or their low-income programs. It already expired. Assist low-income seniors with Medicare navigation and enrollment. So to be clear, right, it's a program that says, hey, here's how Medicare works. Here's what happens with it. I don't know if any of you used the Medicare outreach and enrollment support program? I'm curious. That might guide you on whether or not you feel that you should have to be a part of the funding for it. I'm not sure. You let me know. I don't know. Next one. Certified Community Behavioral Health Clinics Demonstration Authority expired already September 30th, 2025. Supports demonstration programs for integrated behavioral health services in select states. Now an optional Medicaid benefit, but not adopted everywhere. Now here's what's funny about this one. Okay. Trump wants to have someone be institutionalized before housed, which is somebody who's worked with the homeless for a long time. I don't know, like 15, 16, whatever years. I can tell you that plan is actually not a bad idea, because when you house a lot of homeless individuals that have drug habits, that have mental health, impairments, they end up getting kicked out of what they were housed with. Like the apartment they got, they end up getting kicked out of it. And this just it happens over and over and over again. So I don't think he's wrong. I think housing should come second to medical treatment, be, institutionalized, get on track, and then be housed. I think that is a better model. It's an unpopular model because nobody likes to say, hey, we're going to take a bunch of homeless people and basically put them in an institution. That's going to be an unpopular model. But if you have a brain and the industry of homeless people, you would then understand that homeless people didn't become homeless because everything was super kosher in their life. Everything was not super cool in their life. So like the point I'm getting at is, some homeless, they don't need to be institutionalized, easy fixes, small fixes, but some they need it. Drug abuse, alcohol abuse, whatever it is. Could be, basically that something really messed them up and they've got PTSD and it's really screwing with their head. But my point is, I would like to see permanent housing actually be permanent for these people because they're on track. That's crucial. It is crucial. Again, very unpopular because nobody likes to, basically have homeless people be rounded up and institutionalized. I understand that. But at the same time, if you were part of the industry, you would recognize that there needs to be a fix, and the fix is not just magically putting them in a room that they're going to constantly try to get out of. All right, next one. And of course, somebody in the comments will be like, well, my cousin's brother's sister didn't have any problems at all. And, I love those people too. They're completely and utterly removed from reality for the most part. They base their entire intellectual understanding of a theoretical and an actual processing problem that happens every single day on like the one cousin's brother's sister that they've seen go through something. It's just weird. You know what I mean? I have attorneys talk with me all the time about homeless they've worked with, right? Or homeless situation they came across. And I'm sitting there and I got to smile as hard as I can. I smile as hard as I can when I talk to them about it because they have no clue how the homeless actually work. But they had that like one or two clients. Hey, you know what I mean? They had those, you know what I mean? Hey. So, all right, next one. Conrad 30 waiver program. Again, Conrad 30 waiver program. Here we go. Already expired September 30th. Allows international medical graduates on J-1 visas to remain in the U.S. if they practice in underserved areas. I honestly, how would the Republicans reject that one? Like, it's like, why would you reject that? Why would you reject funding that? Like, you got to get doctors to work in underserved areas. And if they got to come from outside of the country, I don't understand. I don't know why we would reject that. I just don't know why. I don't know why. All right, next one. Children's Hospital Graduate Medical Education, the CHGME. All right, so already expired, funds pediatric residency training programs. Do you guys like the idea of doctors getting a helping hand from the government to go train, in pediatric programs for the residency, be subsidized by the government to work basically with kids? Do you guys, I mean, look, a lot of them want to be plastic surgeons for the stars. A lot of them want to be celebrity doctors. I get it, but we do need doctors for kids, especially in underserved, low income areas. I'm just saying. Now, of course, are there going to be illegal immigrants potentially going to that medical clinic or that emergency room? Yes. But just hear me out. Just hear me out. Okay. Again, if America worked like Hollywood, and I don't know if you have noticed, I don't know if you've noticed this, but Pharaoh leveling events seem to happen once Trump gets in after like a 1 to 2 year ramp up. That's just what happens. You know what I mean? They start to happen and then woof, we get Pharaoh leveling events, right? The locusts, the blood, we get Pharaoh leveling events. Okay. So if America was run by Hollywood and they were coming up with how they were going to script the script, not funding these low income areas and then having them have a real bad medical problem with a potential virus, disease, bacteria, fungus, a plasma issue, whatever, I could see that. I could definitely see that. Look, and here's the thing. Okay. What do you think is going to happen when these, food stamps don't pay out in November? You're going to have a lot of poor, hungry, pissed off people. That the super funders of the Democratic Party, Soros is going to pick those people up, fund them to go out and cause mass mayhem. That's going to happen. That there's going to be mega marches. That storefronts are going to be wrecked. People are going to be angry, and the Democrat super funders are going to be feeding them. That's going to happen. All right, next one. National Health Security Programs, Emergency Preparedness and Response Authorities already expired. September 30th enhances national readiness for public health emergencies. And that's how they're going to get Trump. That's exactly how they're going to get Trump. Because if they don't pass that, if they don't fund that, we're not going to be prepared for something. And then something's going to happen. And then they are going to nail Trump on that one bad. Because the funding won't be there and they're going to have to scramble to find it. That is a reputation ruining maneuver right there. That is a chess move that they could use, the Democrats, to really, really put the hurt on the reputation of Trump. I mean, they've done a lot of that, and I still get people that are like, it's a felon in the White House. I'm like, just wait a year. Biden, if everything's okay with him, will probably be a felon too. Okay. It's just give it remember, as an attorney, I need to tell you our legal system is one of the greatest legal systems on planet Earth. But also as an attorney, I need to tell you that the potential of bias and the weight of the evidence, it does make our system not perfectly objective. It is what it is. You know what I mean? It just is what it is. So if you have, people named prosecutors that get to decide if charges are going to be actually launched against somebody. And that's part of the problem. You're seeing people commit murder and then basically not go to jail for maybe a year, less than a year, or not at all. And then a lot of people are going back and they're like, what the hell is this shit? And the reason people are upset is because at the end of the day, they want the crime to be punished in a manner and a way that makes sense. And when you have a murderer that goes free after a year, that's not okay because it doesn't make sense. And that's when we get these judges who are like, my job is to go ahead and rehabilitate and give a second chance. And he's part of a class of individuals that, really hasn't had a fair shot and blah, 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 and yada, yada. Okay, fine, true. But, at the end of the day, I don't think it's, what a lot of them blame it on. A recent Supreme Court justice just blamed an entire race of people, a skin color individual of people, and said they were limited as a result of da da da. And I was sitting back and I was like, it's an entire culture that's been limited because of impoverished, geographic area. But again, she's a Supreme Court justice. I'm not, but she is pushing an agenda that lessens the view of that personage, that person, that group of people actually being positively viewed as equals in America. I don't agree with it. It's like we took a step back there. I was very unhappy when she did that. I was very unhappy. It really pissed me off because I feel like it's the opposite of what Martin Luther King would have been pushing. And I don't feel she could have done it better. She could have worded it better. I mean, I'm not going to go into that. I'm not going to go into, maybe I'll do a video on it. I might do a video on it because I don't think I don't think it helped African Americans at all. I think it was a really negative statement to claim, basically they faced, shortages as disabled individuals in trying to access a system and how they just, that's not, if you ever go look at the original, I had, a dream speech with the identity of accessing basically the potential rights of people from like the Bank of America. You know what I mean? That's not a perfect summation that she did. I was not happy with it. I was very unhappy with it. But again, she's a Supreme Court justice. She gets to do what she wants to do. I'm just a lowly disability attorney. It is what it is. All right. Next one. All right. Family to Family Health Information Centers program, already expired on the 30th, provides health information and support to families of children with special needs. Do you want to fund families that have disabled children? Where do you stand on that? I am not going to bias you on this. You have to make up your own choice. But do you want to fund families that have special need children? Again, I'm not going to bias you in any way at all towards this particular item. But do you want to fund the parents of disabled children? Again, I'm not going to bias you in any way with that particular item. Okay, next one. All right, Sexual Risk Avoidance Education, SRAE program, expired already on the 30th of September, funds education promoting sexual risk avoidance for youth. Do you want to teach the youth how to not get STDs? Do you want to teach the youth how to protect themselves sexually from potential bad people? Do you? Maybe you don't. That's okay too. You're allowed to say no. All of these are allowed to say no. You're allowed to say no to some of these. If you want to say no, that's okay. I'm not going to judge you in any way. You are allowed to say no. Okay. Now remember, this is all under the umbrella of America, basically, being able to go ahead and pay for these things. Yes, America is trillions upon trillions upon trillions in debt. Yes, America has a funding problem where if we keep funding willy-nilly, we will bankrupt the country when it comes to our reserve currency being used by other countries to take out loans and pay other countries, which will greatly reduce the worth of the US dollar, which will make all of you unable to afford a can of soup. So my point is, what do you want to do? We keep funding things unrestricted, right? We collapse the economy. And then you guys won't be able to find food. You won't be able to get food. Which is ironically what we're facing because food stamps are not going to be on in November. And remember this, just to like understand the overall arching situation here. Think about this. Think about what this is. The Democrats are hoping that enough people will become hyper pissed at the Republicans for a closed down government. But most Republicans want small government and don't interact with the government much at all. So all of these Republicans are sitting there going, hey, wait a minute, the government shut down. Hey, wait a minute, they found a way to fund the military. Hey, wait a minute, Social Security benefits are still being paid. Hey, wait a minute. What the hell else were we paying for? Right? And so Republicans are sitting there like, hey, just let it stay shut down. There's no benefit to ramping it. We're just spending too much when we don't need to spend it. Democrats on the other side, and it depends on like what type of Democrat, because there's lots of different Democrats at this point, but the big swing is like your classic, Clinton era, older Democrats, which is kind of like my ideology look at things, and that actually isn't what a Democrat is now. That's not the Democratic Party at all. And then you have what the Democratic Party is, which is kind of like your AOC, your modern LGBTQ plus, trans, Islam first kind of identity stuff like that. That's like your modern Democratic Party, mass illegal immigration through, basically welded open gates, stuff like that. So do you, and ironically, they need lots of government. Who needs lots of government? The poor, the homeless. That's like the two groups that need the most government, right? The poor and the homeless. Two groups. Middle class doesn't need lots of government. Middle upper class does not want the government telling them what to do. The richer the people get, they want less and less government. You think they go out on their super yachts into basically uncontrolled waters with the hopes that the government will come out and hang out with them and collect taxes from them as they're out there? No. The super rich do not want all this government stuff. They don't want to get sued constantly, okay? Which is all part of the government. All right, so my point to you is we've now gone through the 21 items that the Democrats want to continue funding on. Do you support some of them? Do you support all of them? Do you support none of them? Considering that we are now 23 days past September 30th, and you probably haven't noticed that a lot of this stuff was shut down to begin with, where do you stand? Do you want the government to keep spending as it is? And remember, the Republicans, did not put a lot of effort into making a customized bill that they would have preferred. They copy pasted from Biden. You know what I mean? Like, that's one of the things that pissed me off about the Republicans is like, hey guys, I get you're using strategy here. Your strategy to say a clean bill. It's exactly what Biden wants. I get that. But at the same time, like, hey, if you want to fix America, how about a little effort to figure out what you are going to fund? But it is weird that Republicans know the only way for America to succeed is by having lots of babies and then getting those babies, learned on how to go ahead and do a job, get taxed, pay a lot of taxes, grow the economy. They know that. But, in order to do that, you got to make a lot of babies and they got to be covered with health insurance. We do not want women having pregnancies in underfunded hospitals. You know what I mean? We just don't want that. We don't want that. That's like a no bueno. That's a class 5 no bueno. We don't want that. All right. So with that said, now you see it's not as simple as, Fox News and ABC, MSNBC have been making it. It's just not that simple. It's an extremely difficult situation, but the strategy of it, the situation of it is that the Republicans have really nothing that's pushing them at this point to let the Democrats have their way. And the Democrats are about to go through an upheaval because, basically Schumer is the old school, kind of like Jewish, white, New Yorker who's like leading the Senate, right? He doesn't really represent, and to be honest with you, he knew that this whole thing was a bad idea. He knew that fighting the Republicans on this was a losing game. He knew that. If you go look at his, prior news, where he was put on the news and he was talking about it, he knew that the Republicans were going to win this chess game. He knew. But the younger Democrats constantly pushed him and said, you better fight for us. You better fight harder. You better fight or step down. And he said, well, I don't want to step down. I've only been here forever. So basically, he's now hardballing the Republicans. The Republicans have no reason to reopen the government. No reason. The super poor, right? The poor, they don't make much money. They don't pay much taxes. Those people don't pay, they don't vote for Republicans anyways. Right? What are they going to do? Vote for a bunch of stuff that helps the poor? That's not their gig. Their gig is grow the economy. There's nothing here that basically gets the Republicans to be excited about voting the government back on track, which means that almost certainly, and I can't promise it, of course, but almost certainly, we know that the government going forward is likely to be closed through November. All right. Again, we've gone through the 21 items that the Democrats are trying to make sure are funded. It will cost billions upon billions upon billions of dollars. You go out far enough with it, it costs trillions. Do you want to support these items? Which ones do you like? Which ones do you not like? All right. I will catch you all a little bit later. Please remember to like and subscribe. I go live on Mondays and Thursdays to answer questions for free about disability law, America's most viewed, subscribed to, and clicked on Disability Attorney. I will be live tomorrow night. If you want a consultation, that's like 30 minutes or 60 minutes where I figure out some sort of Social Security problem you have. Mini contract is below. With that said, please remember to give this group right here a call about Medicare. Ask them specifically about what's going on with the fraud. Ask them which policy would give them a lot of great would give you a lot of great options for your medications, future medical treatment, surgeries, whatever. Your job is to upkeep your benefits. Go to the hospital, go to the doctors, collect your specialists, collect your RFC letters, collect your Nexus letters if you're VA. Your job is to upkeep your benefits. All right. I'll catch you all a little bit later. You have a wonderful night. Please remember to hit that like button. So many of you don't. It's just like, But otherwise, I will catch you later and we will rock and roll from there. Attorney Walter Hnot, thank you so much and have a beautiful, wonderful night. All right. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.